Hello friends, Hansen here. Welcome back to Ent Media, a video games analysis YouTube channel. So today I want to take the time to talk about the Xbox Showcase, the 2023 Xbox Showcase. Now, just for some high level thoughts, they showed over 25 games. Many of them are first party Xbox Game Studios games, as well as Bethesda games. There's a lot. There's a lot going on. I don't want to immediately stir up the console war kind of conversation, but to talk about Xbox's competitor in PlayStation, it was a longer showcase, and I think it was a better showcase. And I think that these games a lot of them are looking promising. A lot of them look great. Like the ones that really captivated me right out of the gate, inXile's a new game. We got a Fable teaser trailer right at the beginning, no gameplay shown. There was an Avowed gameplay trailer. I've seen a lot of naysaying about Avowed right now out there on the interwebs. I think Avowed looks cool. It kind of looks like a proper substitute for an Elder Scrolls like RPG, and I'm super pumped to hear about this. I never got the chance to play Pillars of Eternity or Deadfire. I never got the chance to play those, but I'm a huge fan of Josh Sawyer. I'm a huge fan of Obsidian. And I think they have the chops to really make this thing good. And it just totally looks like that substitute for an Elder Scrolls like RPG that we don't really have right now. I'm super pumped for Avowed. I don't really know what all the naysaying is about. I heard people kind of saying it looks like Sea of Thieves or something like that, and you can sort of see some changes in the artistic direction, I think, from that perspective. But at the same time, I don't really buy into that. I think it looks sweet. We also there was a Ubisoft massive Star Wars open world adventure kind of game shown entitled Star Wars Outlaws, and I'm really interested to see what this game kind of is. It does have, let me try to think of how to articulate this. It has some kind of new age sequel trilogy energy going on. Like if you're a fan of Star Wars and you're a fan of kind of where the IP is trending towards, and I don't think this game is meant to appeal necessarily to old hardcore Star Wars fans, kind of in the way that I'm kind of getting off on a tangent here, but I think that Star Wars is a very multifaceted intellectual property, and that it appeals to different people in different ways. For example, I think Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor appeal to a person like me that grew up with the prequels and that had the original trilogy to go back and watch, but was more so a prequels kid through and through. I have my own little critiques of the prequels. I don't think they're necessarily great films, but I do love them. They're very integral to my childhood, so I have that nostalgic factor going on. And I do think they have their own little merits and stuff, but I think those games are meant more so for a person like me, and a movie like Rogue One and a show like Andor are more appealing to the old, more crusty Star Wars fan, and that's kind of who they're trying to sell that product to. And this game kind of looks like it's aiming towards the newer generation of Star Wars fans, people that are younger than me, that really grew up with the sequel trilogy, and that's what they know and love. So I think that's what this is kind of aiming towards. It looks cool. We didn't see any gameplay, unfortunately, and that's again, one of the biggest critiques that I have of this showcase is that we didn't necessarily see a lot of gameplay, which is a bummer, but nonetheless, it is what it is. I'm interested to see kind of how this continues to evolve and what this project ends up being. I'm very intrigued to see that it's Ubisoft Massive. Massive is obviously famously known for, they're also known, this is who I thought they were, but I wasn't necessarily sure. So they're also known for The Division, as well as Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, the in development Avatar open world game that we're going to see. And I mean, they made The Division. I have an interesting relationship with The Division. I didn't necessarily play it a whole lot, but I do think it's super cool. And when it was announced, I think that was E3, God, man, it was a long time ago. That was E3 2013 or something. It was 10 years ago when The Division was first shown off. But I think that gameplay demo that they showed in New York when it's snowing and you have the money virus, the money plague, I think it's the money flu actually is what it's called. And I'm a big fan of The Division. I think it's sweet. I think it's a really interesting premise. But it's interesting to see Massive kind of spin off into this own, they're making this Avatar game now. They're making this Star Wars game now, and it's interesting to see kind of what they'll do here. So I'm definitely intrigued with this one. It seems interesting. A couple other highlights. They showed off a Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 demo, wherein they have a whole bunch of interesting. The way that they're marketing this game is that you can pursue your own career in aviation in the game, which I think that's awesome. Like, it's a little one of those things where like games are becoming so hyper evolved and hyper advanced that you can basically have your own little life in games. But it looks so cool, and I'm a fan of aviation. I'm not necessarily like an aviator, and I don't have like a pilot's license or anything like that, but I could definitely see myself like getting into this if it was in the right circumstance. Because they showed off like you can like do construction with your aircraft, you can like race with your aircraft, you can do like search and rescue with your aircraft. It just seemed cool, and it seemed like really the next evolution of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I'm super pumped. And they also reviewed like a Dune crossover, which I think is super sweet, and I'm really pumped to see more of that. I thought that game looked really good, and again, like that's coming from. Let me see who makes this. Yeah, so it comes from Asobo. And what I love about Asobo is that they're also the makers of A Plague Tale, that series, A Plague Tale Innocence and A Plague Tale Requiem. I'm very interested to see kind of how this game turns out. I think it's sweet. This whole like you can have your own career in aviation, you can have all these fun activities that you do in the game. Like I think it's awesome. Could totally see myself getting into this. And the Dune crossover too, where you fly that fucking like wasp thing, looks sweet. So I'm interested to see how this turns out. We got an official release date for Forza Motorsport. It's releasing on October 10th. So Phil Spencer highlighted this at the end of the showcase before they did the Starfield showcase, where he basically said, we're aiming to have Starfield and Forza Motorsport out by holiday of this year. This is very reminiscent of when Halo Infinite and Forza Horizon launched in holiday 2021. It seems like they're kind of trying to hit that high note again, because that was undoubtedly like when Halo Infinite and Forza Horizon, that was Forza Horizon 5 that they released at the end of 2021, and that was definitely a high note for the Xbox brand. I mean, that was the most goodwill that the brand had currently had since arguably the Xbox 360 generation. So yeah, definitely super sweet. I'm really pumped for that. I think it'll be cool to see. I'm not necessarily like a sim racer fan, but I just know that like I know tons of dudes out there are like super into Forza Motorsport. And a lot of people, especially with the explosion of Formula One racing in the United States and kind of how that's taken off and how many people are interested in that within our culture, I'm really interested to see how this game does and how it's received, and I have no doubt that it's going to be excellent, because I mean it looks great, and it seems like they're doing everything they need to do to get it to where it needs to be. And then finally, kind of a weird move, but we got a Starfield story trailer prior to the showcase, which I don't really know why that was there at all, because not only did the showcase really just like, all right, we're going to talk about both of these things right now. So I'm going to kind of alter here. We're talking about the Starfield story trailer that occurred before the showcase, while also talking about the showcase itself. The story trailer was a weird move because I don't think they needed, like, they showed too much of Starfield in reality. I think that you can make the argument that they needed to show more of the game because people were skeptical about it when they showed it back in 2021. No, check. That was 2022 when they showed that. That was the game showcase of last year, summer 2022. When they showed that game, many people were a little disenchanted and including myself. Like, I don't know why they showed that game at the time, because clearly you can go back and watch that demo, like the shooting and the gameplay and the more kinetic action of the game wasn't really necessarily where it needed to be in order to be shown in a demo. So I'm not really sure why they did that. I think it was just kind of one of those things where it's like, this thing is taking a long time to develop, and it's clear why it's taking a long time to develop, because this game is going to be crazy. But at the same time, it's one of those things where it's like they kind of did a lot of damage to themselves, and in the end, maybe it was a good thing. Like, maybe that's why they got that delay in kind of at the end of 2022, and that's why they delayed it to the end of this year. And they basically had that extra year to kind of really get the game to where it needed to be in order to be the game that Microsoft and Xbox need it to be. They need this game to be a banger. They need this game to be one of those 10 out of 10s that people are going to buy an Xbox for. Like, I bought an Xbox to play Starfield because I don't have a PC, and this is the only machine. I got a Series S. This is the only machine that I would be able to play the game on. So, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, we need it. The Xbox community needs it. I'm really kind of sick of seeing Xbox just drop the ball. You can go check out my video I made on like kind of the state of the brand once Redfall launched, because that was a very low point at that time. But I really think that Starfield, Ryan McCaffrey of IGN famously said, or he rather famously asked the question, is the pressure on Starfield enough to turn it into a diamond? Meaning the pressure that was now on Starfield from the fallout of Redfall, was that enough to really get this game to be a 10 out of 10 because of the pressure that it was under? And I think the answer to that is yes. Like, I think this game is shaping up to be awesome. There's obviously, like, I think that we should really hold our speculation till the end of when this game launches and kind of how it's received at launch. Like, obviously Bethesda has this historic reputation of the Bethesda jank, and some people think that's charming. Some people think it's it's just kind of annoying and a quality assurance issue. I'm more so of the opinion that I think it's charming, but at the same time, with this being a first-party game now, not just like a third-party Bethesda fun game, like this is a first-party game, it's at a higher echelon and it has higher expectations. So I think that it's probably time for that to go away. And especially given that this is the first IP that Bethesda has created, the first new IP that Bethesda has created since the Elder Scrolls, Bethesda Game Studios has created since the Elder Scrolls, they need to make sure that this is good to go. So I'm really interested to see how this turns out. I think it's fascinating. And it's just kind of, I know I'm one of these people at the end of the day because I'm just a consumer of games. I don't make games. I'm not like involved in the creation of games in any way. But it's one of those things where I kind of feel like a hypocrite because I'm just like talking shit and wanting to see what happens and wanting to play the game. But at the end of the day, like it's cool to see the devs do their thing. And it's cool to see guys like Todd and Emil Pagliarulo just like getting in there and really getting the work done and making sure that this is a great game that's really going to push the industry forward in many ways. I can't wait to play Starfield. Like I'm contemplating taking time off of work to just spend time with it, because it's really important, not just for the Xbox brand, but for games and for like Bethesda Game Studios is a historically renowned studio in terms of the kind of games that they make. Like before Skyrim, which is easily their most famous and successful and best game ever made, they made Fallout 3, which was one of my favorite games of all time and completely changed the way that I thought about video games and what games could be. And in many ways, like influenced me as an individual in ways that I won't really get into here, but like it's really important. This game is very important, not just to me, but like for the industry as a whole. So I'm super pumped to see where it's at. And just, I mean, the game mechanically in the showcase, man, like it looks crazy. And it looks like, like this whole 30 frames debacle has been a thing. This is something that my kind of opinion has been changed on, especially because of Zelda. Like I'm playing Tears of the Kingdom right now pretty extensively. Like, just to let you guys know where I'm at with that game. I was more so of the opinion that Breath of the Wild was a great game, but it wasn't like many people will tell you that Breath of the Wild was like their favorite game ever made. Like, and I could see it, you know what I mean? But I just don't necessarily agree that like the game was that good. But I think with Tears of the Kingdom, like this could shape up to be one of my favorite games of all time. Like this could shape up to be one of the greatest games ever made in hindsight. And that's really special. And I'm really just loving spending time with it. And the performance on the Switch that they managed to pull out of Tears of the Kingdom, considering what the game is, it's like a technological miracle that game is 16 gigabytes. It runs at a steady 30 frames per second. It runs well. It plays great. Like you can go to the Sky Islands, you can go to the depths, you can go anywhere in Hyrule and like the main middle kind of area. It's a wonderful game, and I could talk about it for a long time. But what I will say is that it runs at 30 frames per second, and the game is so good that the frame rate doesn't matter. And that's a very risky. Like if I was in game development, I would probably err on the side of caution and like make 60 frames per second a part of my design philosophy and going into the game. If I was to do that in like the current state of the industry and the current state of like consumers' expectations. But with man, with a game like Starfield and how crazy it is and how ambitious it seems to be, 30 frames per second. And like Todd has been broadcasting, like he was on Lex Friedman, I want to say like at the end of last year, maybe at the beginning of this year. He has been broadcasting continuously that this game is going to run at 30 frames per second. And I think now that I've seen it more extensively and that it's in a more polished state and that the vision is finally really coming together, and like we as the consumers are starting to understand what it is, and we as like the gamers are starting to understand what it is, like I think that game is going to be wild. I think it's going to be special. I really hope that we have another moment. It would be super cool to have a moment for every first-party game developer in 2023 where we're all talking about a game that's great from them. That like we really have never had that, or at the very least, like we haven't had that in a long time. Where every first-party developer has released a game that is a Game of the Year contender. That would be super cool to see, like especially like with Spider-Man 2 coming from Insomniac, like that's easily going to be a Game of the Year contender. I can't wait to get my hands on that. Tears of the Kingdom, I think, is going to be a runaway for like Game of the Year, but that's just my opinion. And then Starfield looks great too, and like they just really got to like bring it home and get this game to where it needs to be in the final stages of development here. I'm super pumped to get my hands on it. I think it looks awesome. It's the RPG that like so many of us have been waiting for so long to finally play, and it's going to be great to see. It's going to be great to really just get our hands on it. So I'm super pumped about that. And then there was lots of other news that happened in this showcase. They really did get after a lot. We got a Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty. I think that Phantom Liberty looks absolutely crazy, and I've seen some interesting takes where like people like Ches Gordon have gone hands-on with it and have made the claim like you should, if you're playing Cyberpunk 2077 right now, you should just stop and wait for this version to come out and then just play this along with the main game. I find that really interesting, and I just really CD Projekt Red has a lineage and a wonderful history of making fantastic expansions for their games. We saw this with The Witcher 3's expansions. I'm super pumped to see how Cyberpunk is going to be. Because I like Cyberpunk was one of those games when it launched that I had never, the last time I was as excited for a game like Cyberpunk was like Fallout 4. That was the last time I got that excited for Cyberpunk, or a game like Cyberpunk, I should say. I think that it has the potential to really be special. This expansion and this like interesting story that we're going to be getting with V and Johnny Silverhand and Idris Elba's character, and this like NUSA kind of involvement, the new United States of America government. I really think they have the potential to tell like a really interesting story, and also hopefully we have kind of a Far Harbor moment in Fallout 4 where they really hone in on the RPG elements of the game, and in a more contained experience they're really able to give us a lot of choice and consequence, a lot of really interesting gameplay mechanics within this expansion. I'm really interested to see what it's going to be, and I can't wait to play it. I think it's going to be great. And then there's a few other things that I want to touch on. I'm really just trying to hit the highlights here. There was a game that was revealed called Jusant. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Jusant. Maybe that's like Jusant or something. It's a rock climbing game from the developer of Life is Strange, Don't Nod. And dude, I really think this game looks special. I think it looks super cool. It sort of, and I don't know if this is going to land well with people, it sort of gave me Death Stranding vibes, wherein it was a more chill and kind of like different gameplay experience that we had never really seen before. It kind of gave me those sort of vibes, and it kind of gave me that sort of feeling when he's climbing the wall and like, all the little stuff is popping up. I'm really interested to see what that game is going to be and how it's going to shape up. I think it'll be really interesting. Life is Strange is obviously a celebrated game in the industry, and I'm really excited to see what kind of happens here. So finally, I think one of the only things left that I want to talk about is the Xbox Series S 1TB carbon black reveal trailer. So Microsoft and Xbox are launching a new Xbox Series S that has a 1TB hard drive, and it's going to be priced at $349 US. I think I think the Xbox Series S is one of the most, actually check that. I think the Xbox Series S is the most interesting console from a engineering standpoint and from a business model standpoint that the industry has seen in a long time. Like, I just genuinely think that. The Xbox Series S is not designed to be a beast. It's not designed to play all of your old Xbox games. Like, it's designed to be a Game Pass machine. And I really think that that's an interesting... We haven't really had... Like, this is the first generation where we've had all digital consoles. But this is the first generation where we've had... Like, it kind of just feels like an arcade box in some ways. Like, you have access to this library of games. You use this little machine that's super powerful for its size to interface with all of these advanced games. And, like, you can play... Dude, I am super impressed with the Series S. Like, you can play... I've been playing Fallout New Vegas recently on my Series S. I mean, it runs it perfectly. It runs it perfectly at 60 frames per second. Like, I have access to all the DLC that I played when I was in like middle school. I have access. Like, I think it's a really interesting machine that allows. It's been a very nostalgic machine for me too in a lot of ways. Like, I haven't been an Xbox gamer since 2013, 2014. Basically, whenever I got my hands on a PS4, I was done with the Xbox ecosystem until this year. My wife got me a Xbox Series S for my birthday. And it's just one of those things where it's like, this thing is crazy, man. And for it being priced, like my wife got it on sale and she was able to get it for like $230 something, shipping included. And I mean, man, like we made a lay with Bandits. Like, I mean, it's a crazy little machine, and I'm really excited to see how, like, not only, like, it'll probably struggle with a game like Starfield, and it'll probably struggle with a game like Forza Motorsport. But I really don't know. Like, maybe it'll just be like, it'll be a champ and just kind of like plow through those games. We'll see. But this 1 terabyte Xbox Series S, and also given that it's carbon black, it is very appealing to me. I don't think I'm going to buy one necessarily, but if I had not bought an Xbox yet, this would be the one that I would buy. Because I feel like the Series S already has like a pretty good bit of storage. Like, you can basically install like 7 games on it, 7 to 8 games, maybe even more, and have a great time with the kind of ecosystem that you're getting plugged into, especially with Game Pass. It's really fascinating, man. And like, I think Game Pass is kind of interesting. Like, it's not something that I have remained subscribed to. Like, I'm going to resubscribe whenever Starfield comes out, or whenever these little games come out that I want to dabble in for like a month. Like, I'll pay my $15 for a month and then I'll get out. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to stay subscribed to Game Pass when I'm not using Xbox, just because that's just me. But it seems really... It seems like a really interesting, kind of innovative, and then obviously that has all of the business kind of implications along with it regarding the way that games are made. And I'm just fascinated to see how this 1 terabyte Xbox Series S is gonna do. Like, if I really think this is a great machine to launch Starfield with, because if you can get your hands on this thing, you're chilling, dude, with as far as Starfield goes. And you can play it, like, you can get that little screen that folds up on it, the X screen, and and you can take this on the go and you can have a great time. So it seems really interesting, and I am super fascinated to see kind of how this thing plays out. But then, yeah, man, I mean, those are really my high level thoughts on each of the really individual things that I saw in the showcase that I thought were interesting. There's a couple other things, like I thought the Persona reveals, we had like left of launch indication that these games were going to be coming out. Like, we knew Persona 3 remake was coming. We knew that Persona 5 Tactics, I think is what it's called. And we also saw the new fantasy kind of JRPG coming from some of the makers of Persona in the showcase, and it was really interesting, and it actually looks really cool. I kind of have a hard time with getting into JRPGs, but I do think that, like, anime, and especially the Persona series, is pretty cool. So I'm interested to see kind of how that continues. But other than that, I kind of want to conclude by giving this final thought that I have about the showcase. So I've kind of seen a lot of mixed opinions online, and some people, I think, like a lot of the, let's say, like, console warriors on the PlayStation side, are trying to say that this showcase sucked, and they just kind of try to point out the things that suck about it. While on the Xbox side, I've seen lots of, like, this was perfect, this was the best showcase of the summer, those sort of opinions. And I think at the end of the day, guys, my opinion here, and what I want to throw out there is, in order to become a more perfect society, I think we need to be able to be nuanced while also being objective. And what I mean by that is, like, we have to be able to have these kind of nuanced discussions. Like, objectively, I've pointed out in this video that I think that this showcase was good. I thought it was totally good. And I'm not going to sit here and put like a letter grade or like a number score on it, just because I don't want to lose the plot of how nuanced I'm trying to be here. And I don't want to play to the strengths of this medium that I've chosen to engage in. But at the same time, we have to be objective while also being nuanced. It's the dichotomy. It's a difficult dichotomy to strike, and it's a difficult dichotomy to find balance in. At the end of the day, like I said earlier, we're not making these games. We don't have any skin in the game apart from how excited we are for it and the money that we're going to spend on the game. That's all the skin we have in the game. Like, we're not giving hours of our lives and days and months and years of our lives to make these games, and we don't have this responsibility to our shareholders to meet their expectations. Like, we don't have any of that. We're just consumers of games. And so I think that a lot of fans of games kind of need to chill out when it comes to like how they talk about these things, because at the end of the day, we don't really have any skin in the game, and we're just the consumers. And and it sort of goes back to the avowed is mid kind of perspective I've seen out there. Like, you're entitled to that opinion, but like, most of the people, like 99% of the people, haven't even played the game, and they don't even know what it is, and they're out here trying to say that it's mid, and that's coming from a studio like Obsidian that is a celebrated developer and a celebrated maker of games, and a very successful one at that. And they have people like Josh Sawyer who are like legends in the industry, and like, we have no reason to doubt that Avowed is going to be good, apart from like a 3-minute trailer that doesn't really even show that much gameplay, and it doesn't really even show what the game is, and everyone's out here trying to say that it looks bad, and it's just, and the same goes for Starfield. Like, people are out there trying to say that the 30 FPS for Starfield is like the worst, it's like the end of the world, and it's like, no dude, like, you haven't even played it. You know what I mean? And then like, we can have our perspective based off of our past experiences that like 30 frames per second is not ideal. Like, sure, ideally we would want to play Starfield at 60 frames per second, but at the same time, for the kind of game that it is, I don't know. Like, I just don't really see it, and like, I don't really even think we can have a real opinion until we get our hands on it, and that's not happening until September. So that's just what I think. And at the end of the day, like, I think that's the goal of my channel, is that I want to have nuanced and objective discussions about games. I just think this needs to be called out, where we see just these people that are they just want attention, and they want like, they're going to say like, Avowed looks mid, Starfield 30 frames per second sucks, and it's like, sure, like, that's not ideal, but at the end of the day, that's what we're getting. And like, we can sit here and like wish for more, but at the end of the day, like, we should just be grateful for what we are getting. Like, we're getting a new RPG from Bethesda Game Studios, a new IP where you can fly your own spaceship, go to any planet. Like, I just don't really know what there is to be upset about, and it looks really great. So I don't know. I have a hard time sympathizing, I think, with some of these opinions out there. But I will conclude by saying that I do genuinely believe that the perception out there that most people hold is that this was a good showcase, and at the end of the day, that's a good thing, and we should be happy about that. So I'm really pumped to continue to analyze what's going on in the Xbox brand. As I've stated previously, I have a lot of love for the Xbox brand. It meant a lot to me as I was growing up, and there were many times in my life where having an Xbox was really meaningful and helped me get through some hard times, in all honesty. So it means a lot to me, and I'm really excited to see that the brand's in a good spot, and I'm really excited for a lot of these games. Especially, I think I do want to hit on something here. That's just my opinion, and like, this might not resonate with a lot of people, and that's fine, but I just want to throw it out there. So I don't really know. I want to talk about inXile for a second and their new IP. inXile's new IP is called Clockwork Revolution, and it looks really cool. We didn't really see a whole lot. We just got a trailer. We didn't get like a demo, that's fine. Probably the game isn't in a great spot to be demonstrated, which is like, that's cool. The trailer looked good. And I think that there's a lot to be excited about. Like, they showed some sort of mechanic where you can mess with time and like some sort of impact on the story of the game with this time mechanic, and some sort of element of choice and consequence in there, which is really exciting, and it looks cool. So I don't want your takeaway, in my opinion, to be like this. I don't like this. But here's what I do have to say. I don't know why inXile is not making a Fallout 1 and 2 or Fallout 1 or 2 remake or remaster. I kind of see it as a missed opportunity, and that's just my opinion. I think that inXile has a really storied history of making isometric RPGs, and Wasteland 3 is like a really great game. If you haven't checked that out, it's definitely one of the slept on ones out there. It's really great. I would highly recommend you go back and check it out. And they could take that expertise and apply it to a Fallout 1 and 2 remake and get those games. Those games are currently in a very unplayable state, in a very inaccessible state. And that really sucks because there's a lot of rich history with those games. They were made by Interplay. Interplay is now defunct, and a lot of those developers are like basically all of the developers that are super integral to making Fallout 1 and 2, or that were responsible for making Fallout 1 and 2 what they were at that time, are now under the Xbox banner. People like Josh Sawyer, people like Fergus Urquhart, like all of these dudes, and there's so many more out there. You should just like do your own research and go look at it if you're interested. I don't know why they're not making that, and I have to imagine like we have to get some sort of initiative going where people in the Fallout or in the Xbox brand are now making Fallout games. There's too many important people that have touched the IP that happen to be in the same place at the same time, and if they don't do something with Fallout apart from just adding shit to Fallout 76 that no one really wants, like, I mean, that's fine. Like, I know that game has its own fan base, like it has its own audience, right? But like people love Fallout for it being a single player RPG. They don't like it for being a live service game. That's cool, and it's like I'm sure it's found some levels of success, but at the same time, like that's what we want. And I'd like to speak up for the consumer here and be like, that is the thing that we want, and it is a little disappointing to see that we're not getting that anytime soon. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. I do think that Clockwork Revolution looks dope. I think it looks awesome. I think it'll be a great game. We have no reason to doubt that it'll be anything less than good. But yeah, just wanted to throw that out there because it is kind of a bummer for me. And also, like we've had multiple reports of supposedly inXile hiring for a new IP based on a storied franchise. Those were the reports that we had, and maybe that's just the gaming industry doing what it does and the games media doing what it does and just spinning people up just to get people excited. But you know, who knows? And also, just as a parting shot, it was interesting to see in the showcase that there was no mention of the supposed Todd Howard produced Indiana Jones game. The last time we heard about this was actually from Todd on Lex Friedman's podcast. If you haven't listened to that and you're a fan of Todd Howard, you should go listen to that podcast because it's really good. It came out, like I said, late 2022, early 2023, sometime in that like 4 months, but really good. Go check it out. He talked about it a little bit there, and he's been talking about how he's been doing some work on the production side of the house on that game. But we didn't see anything about it, and it would have been cool to get a little update from Todd and just kind of be like, this is the game. This is kind of like some story details. It would have made the showcase better objectively. So in my opinion. So yeah, it was a little bit of a bummer to not see that here. But anyways, fellas, that is all I've got for you. These are kind of my high level thoughts about the showcase. I thought it was good. I thought it wasn't great in my opinion, but it was good. And there's nothing really to like say beyond that. So if you like my content, please subscribe, and I'll keep pumping this out as much as I can. Really appreciate the support I've gotten so far. So thanks everyone. Appreciate it. Hope you have a great day. This is Hansen with Ent Media out.